I needed someone to tell me that I was doing a good job. And I still need that. No one tells you or prepares you for all that comes with grief and everything that follows after that. And if you're anything like me, you've been doing a lot, handling a lot, not just emotionally, but also practically after the loss of your loved one. And it's so easy to feel like you're not doing things right or you're failing. It's a really weird place to be because literally your whole world has changed. And it feels like you're living with a shell of who you used to be, a little tiny piece of your heart still remaining. You're walking around on like zero energy and feeling soulless, while at the same time having so much to do. All of the paperwork, all of the arrangements, all of the making major decisions. And at the same time, you feel like your whole future has changed. Like your vision for what you wanted or what you expected your life to be is gone. So you're surviving and you're taking care of things, but to what end? Like, what's the purpose? What's the end goal? What's the point? And then on top of that, sometimes you have those moments where you look around at the rest of the world, everyone else who is okay and who is not grieving, and your peers, and you feel like part of you still responds to that or responds to wanting to keep up with your pace or the milestones of where you should be in life. And it's just such an overwhelming and confusing way to live. It's like you're half here, half not, half trying, half not, half able, half not. You're in this in-between place of like giving it your all just to survive, while also giving up on the future and giving up on your dreams, while still actually having to be alive and somewhat care in order to keep your life going. If you're new here, my name is Erica, and this is Arlinity Papers and Petals. This is my space where I talk about my experience with grief while I do arts and crafts and other kind of soothing ASMR things, while I talk, while I process. You are welcome here. It's my hope and my intention that I can be company for you if you're going through a similar thing, and that my videos can provide some comfort to you, knowing that there's someone who understands, who is going through many of the things that you're probably going through. And also just to give yourself something pleasant to look at, even just a momentary pause in your overwhelm. Again, this is not a substitute for professional mental health services. I found this box of candles that are intended to be used as floating candles. I found this going through my mom's things and decided to put them to good use. It's so funny that she bought these. I'm pretty sure she got these from a garage sale or a thrift sale. And my mom wasn't a candle person, so I'm 99.9% sure that she bought these for me. So I might as well use them. I don't know if you're like me at all, but water is very soothing for me. Not just being by natural bodies of water outdoors in nature, but like even just taking a shower or just seeing water in a bowl or in a cup, it feels very therapeutic for me. So this felt really appropriate for tonight. And hopefully you guys don't hear my squeaky chair too much. So I know that my experience really, I don't think is typical. I have had a very difficult time in my grief, probably more so than the average person. But if you're anything like me, you probably had a lot to do after the loss of your loved one, especially if it was untimely and unexpected. And in my experience, I am the responsible child, the one who always held things together and could be depended upon to do what needed to be done. And so, long story short, I got left with all of the responsibility, all of the challenges, all of the undesirable parts of the aftermath of death. And that has been extremely difficult. I've been having to make major decisions, solve problems, put out fires, attend to crises, make arrangements, all kinds of things, on top of unbearable grief. And it's not even a luxury of like, people tell me, or they had told me when I used to allow people to talk to me, but they'd say like, oh, you're so strong. you know, keep up the good work, or you're just such a strong person, you've got this. And I really didn't. I didn't have it, and I still don't have it. Um, I hope that everyone listening has like a really strong support system, but in my experience, surprisingly, I didn't. I did not know that the people who I would have sworn would have been right by my side wouldn't, that they weren't going to do that. And I've had to be strong just in order to survive and to do what needed to be done. And it's been extremely, extremely difficult. I think it's so easy for people to be on the outside looking in and offer words. But really, in a situation like this, words simply are not enough. And I know so many of you listening understand what I mean by that. In this experience, you need words and actions, practical help and emotional support. And lately, in the last couple of days, I've been really thinking about all that I've been through in these last 2 years. You know, I feel like just now I'm finally having this space to look backwards and to introspect and to like reflect on my experience. And I I literally did so much that went unacknowledged, not only by others but also by myself. And I think when a person is able to do the unthinkable, to literally keep marching forward while there's a hole in their chest where their heart used to be, while feeling half alive. When people see that, they just assume that that person doesn't need anything or doesn't need encouragement or help because they're surviving. But it's like, what's the alternative? Is it that like you have to actually completely lose your shit and completely just be inoperable for people to step up? I feel like even then that's not guaranteed. And so that's why I've kept going. And if you're anything like me, a very responsible, resourceful, practical person, you probably made mistakes along the way or didn't do things perfectly, because how could you? Like, when I think about it, really it's monumental. It's a monumental effort to keep living and handle emergencies and make major decisions when you're in that state of being. And so I guess I thought I had a vision of what these last 2 years would look like, of what my grief experience would look like. And I thought of it as a linear experience, as something that I could predict, something that was going to be logical and follow a process, and that I would have, these fairy tale Disney like experiences and heal. And it's not been that way. It's been a lot of downs, not that many ups, but also twists and turns and things that I wasn't expecting and couldn't foresee. And because of my nature of being a practical, logical, responsible person, it's felt like a failure. It's felt like a personal failure that things outside of my control happened, that I didn't get to follow my deadline, that I didn't get to make decisions the way that I wanted to make them from an ideal place and position. And that feeling of seemingly not having done things right has brought a lot of feelings of guilt, feelings of shame. And that has been unbearable. And it wasn't until literally very recently that I've been able to give myself, not even give myself grace, because that feels like it's something extracurricular or something not totally deserved. But when I actually really looked at what I've done in the last 2 years, I realized that I actually did do things right. From where I was with what I was going through and what I was working with, I absolutely made the best decisions in those moments with what I had. And even though things have been prolonged and haven't been a linear line, none of the things that I had to endure or solve or fix were things that I actually created myself. And it took remarkable resilience and heart to make it through what I've made it through. And even though it's been what feels to me to be prolonged, when I zoom out and look at the big picture, I see that I have made progress, if that's even the right word, but I have accomplished things and am arriving at certain emotional points, practical points that do feel like they're in the right order. It just took longer than expected, and there were extra curves and twists and turns along the way. And maybe in time I can share more specifically the details, but I feel like even that would be a whole process to even really truly break down all that's taken place. But just off of the top of my head, to name a few things, actual physical illnesses that I've had in the last 2 years. I haven't been physically healthy consistently in the last 2 years. And so there's the physical aspect of it, there's obviously emotional, there is paperwork, there are, for many of us, having to go through the probate process if your loved one didn't pre-plan for their passing. There is the normal responsibilities of being an adult, like work and career. There is taking care of dependents. There is sorting through belongings. There's dealing with weather and natural disasters or storms. Like there's so much that happens in the grief process that is on top of just normal everyday life experiences. And so if you're listening, regardless of what you have had to do, your age, your position in life, your support system or lack thereof, I feel like it's universal that in grief, and that is if you're not running from your experience or numbing yourself out to cope with it, which I understand. But for those who've had to stay and face practical things on top of their grief, I want you to hear this from me, that you're doing a good job. You're doing better than you think. And in time, when you zoom out, you'll be able to see all that you've done. And I know that it may feel like you're not doing things perfectly, but I assure you that you're doing things more correctly than you're giving yourself credit for. It is a monumental task and takes tremendous courage and effort to continue moving forward in life after such a tragedy. And for people on the outside looking in, or for people who are not currently going through this experience and they're just going about their life, it's easy to cast judgments or make criticism of a grieving person and what they're doing and how they're doing it. But only those of us who have had this experience understand just how difficult it is. How much courage and self-motivation it takes just to get out of bed every day, to continue to be here when you're in your worst moments, feeling your absolute lowest, while simultaneously not exactly having something to look forward to. Because most of us, many of us, wanted our loved one to be a part of our future. We expected that. If no one has told you, I want you to hear it from me that you're doing better than you think, and you're doing a good job. We all need hope. We all need hope. We all need comfort. This is not easy. But what is easy is to become hopeless, to become discouraged, to feel overwhelmed, to lose sight of the future. Those things are completely normal, and I totally get it. But one thing I know now is that even with how true that is, how valid those feelings are, there's something about the human spirit and the human psyche that needs hope. Even if you don't believe it, even if you don't want to have hope, your psyche and your soul and your spirit needs that. And it's really a form of neglect to not allow yourself to have it. And I know that that's easier said than done. It's easier said than done. But just like if you take your vitamins, if you are able to get some exercise, if you're able to eat and make sure you get nourishment, having hope is an essential need, just like that. And you don't have to hold on to hope permanently. You don't have to see into the future. But if you could allow yourself some hope and some comfort just one day at a time, even if it's just one thing that makes you settle into your skin and take a deep breath, or one quote that makes you feel like things could be okay. I am asking you and encouraging you to please let yourself have that. Because as time goes on, you'll feel the absence of that. And the effects are cumulative. In the depths of my despair, I started seeking out stories. Even subconsciously, I was like looking for stories, real life stories of people who've survived extreme hardship. I was on YouTube listening to documentaries and interviews of people who've survived extreme violence, extreme situations. I listen to man's search for meaning over and over and over and over again. And it brought me comfort or resolve that, yes, I am in pain. I am in agony right now. And there have been other people who have been in a similar agony, and they were able to keep moving forward. That didn't mean that they knew what was coming next or that something was guaranteed. But I knew that I was still here. I was still alive. I was still having to face my reality every morning that I woke up. So I needed a resolve, a determination, an acceptance of what I was experiencing so that I could keep moving forward. And one thing that I wish I would have been able to do more of, but I understand why I couldn't, is actually acknowledging my efforts. Because what could be worse than going through the hardest experience of my life, having to deal with additional crises on top of that, and then beating myself up by feeling shame and guilt about how I'm surviving it. It's an extremely cruel experience and an impossible place to be in. And so now that I have space mentally, I guess, some extra bandwidth, I am making it a priority to take the time to actually acknowledge myself, not superficially, but actually concretely, with concrete examples, examine these last 2 years and tell myself how good of a job I've done and encourage myself. I'm realizing that I don't have and I don't want the liberty of waiting for someone else to validate this experience, because you know what? Unless the person is walking in my shoes, they don't actually get it. They don't actually know what it is that I'm surviving. And the same is true for you. And so, wherever you are when you're watching this video, I'd like to gently ask you, if you can, to think of one thing today that you're proud of yourself for, or that you did or accomplished that you know took tremendous effort from you. And actually think about that experience and tell yourself that you did a good job. Whether that's you were able to brush your teeth today, or get out of bed, or drink water. All of those things actually do matter. And your heart and your spirit needs to hear that encouragement from yourself and that acknowledgement of yourself. And over time, it'd be wonderful if that practice of acknowledging an actual example, an actual experience from your life, that could turn from daily to weekly to a monthly practice. I just think it's so important that as you look back in your journey of grief, to have things that you can feel proud of and that you can acknowledge yourself for. And according to grief research, early grief lasts 2 years. 2 years and you're still in the early stage of grief. And then, as we know, grief is lifelong, right? So if we have to walk this path for the rest of our lives, we need to acknowledge the bravery that that takes. And I feel like things would go better if we did that. And as I hear myself say the word better, I hear the grief part of me say, how could anything be better? Nothing is better because everything is destroyed now. Nothing is as it should be or as I wanted it to be, and is pointless. But I remind myself, as I've lived through it these last 2 years, actually, things could be worse. And things are worse when I'm being hard on myself on top of having to survive the unthinkable. And so, yeah, actually, I need every bit of encouragement, kindness, approval, acknowledgement from myself that I can get. And so, if there's anything you can take from this video, it's that I'm wanting you to know that you're doing a good job. That I acknowledge you and the effort that it takes for you to keep going every day, every moment, every minute. And in time, if you're able, when you're able, please give yourself credit, acknowledge yourself, approve of yourself. And I'm not asking you to lie to yourself. Actually find those real examples, big and small, that you can feel proud of. Because you need that and you deserve it. So, friends, I am going to leave you with that tonight. And I will see you all again in the next one.